Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ackman, and I'm joined today by Hawk Ripjaw,
Hello.
Bill Leon,
Hello.
Bill Arsenault,
Hey there.
and and this week is Cynical Week in terms
Well,
of...
every week is Cynical Week, I
Yes.
think. I mean, but this one more than the others.
We're going to talk about our worst of films from 2017. Now, just to refresh those who joined us last year, what we're going to do, how we're going to format this is when a movie is named, if that movie is higher up on someone else's list, we'll skip talking about it until we get to that higher point. And what we're going to do is shorten things a little bit last year because last year, because we went a little long, is we're just going to talk about
A little long.
Yeah, okay.
It was just a little long by about 100%.
The best of is really where we got into really long. And Zach was on both shows, so it was 5 people going over 10 movies, you know?
Yeah.
And in Zach's case, like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Zach, he cannot just make a top 10. Zach does not abide by... I was telling Hawk this earlier today, that when you're making a top 10 list and ordering it, you have to be willing to kill your children.
Because, for context, I was not sure between two movies which one should earn a spot on my list, and I was considering maybe a tie, but I don't really like doing ties.
Mhm.
Exactly. There's no such thing as a tie. You have to choose.
I've done a tie before with the Movie Boozer list, but the way I did it, it was like one was I skipped a number basically. Like I made a number 3 and then I went to number 1. So
Right.
It was almost like, like it kind of made up for it.
It was still 10 movies, but 2 were so close in quality that you had them both as your favorite. It was like Cloud Atlas and one other movie. I can't remember.
I can forgive that because you're taking up 2 slots, so that's at least, something.
But again, these lists are arbitrary, as we've said many times before. So really, I think that they can be molded into whatever we need them to be for a given year. So I have no problem, giving out multiple movies to one slot and then moving on to the next one as if nothing happened,
And as with last year, this is because we're constraining ourselves to this list of 10. There could be movies that we think are just as bad, but not quite bad enough to warrant talking about. And same thing is like with next week. There are movies that are going to be great movies, but not quite good enough to warrant the highlight. And so that said, people like lists, so let's jump into it. We're going to start by going over each of our lists from 10 through 6.
The bottom half.
The bottom half, because we're not going to talk about those films at any real length. So I'll go ahead and lead off, I suppose. My bottom, the bottom 10 of my bottom 10. Or
the bottom half.
The bottom 5 of my bottom 10.
Okay.
Are we doing it all in a chunk, or are we going the rounds 10, 9, 8, and so on?
I'll read off mine, and just for this section, we'll just read off each of ours. Okay?
Okay.
So my number 10 is The Assignment.
Okay.
My number 9 is Bright.
Okay.
My number 8 is Wish Upon.
Alrighty.
My number 7 is Tulip Fever. And my number 6 is Justice League.
Oh, we share something in common, Ken.
All right, Bill, you go next then.
All right, number 10, Valerian.
Okay.
Number 9, The Fate of the Furious.
Ooh.
Number 8, The Little Hours.
Ooh.
Number 7, The Incredible Jessica James. And number 6, Justice League.
You really hated Jessica James. I didn't hate it, but
I didn't. Yeah, I feel bad about Jessica James because I really wanted it to be very good.
You started out saying good things about it, and then your review just got steadily worse as it went on.
Yes, it wasn't a very good movie.
All right,
I rooted for it hard though.
So we'll go with Hawk next. What is yours?
All right, my number 10 is the Emoji Movie. My number 9 is The Evil Within. My number 8 is 50 Shades Darker. My number 7 is Boo 2, A Medea Halloween.
Oh, God.
And my number 6 is Valerian.
Ooh.
Now, I think we should note on this show, on this episode, that some of us see more bad movies than others.
Okay.
Or just a different level of bad movies.
Or a different level of bad movies than others. You know, some of us see, you know, review movies of a particular kind because we hate ourselves, and others have, you know, not higher standards but different standards and would rather hate ourselves in a different way. You know.
My worst of list is not as complete as it normally is, just because I was out of commission for a little while last year and haven't quite caught up on everything. But
I feel bad that I haven't seen nearly as many movies as Hawk did. I mean, he saw, you know, Boo 2 and all these other films to put on the list. I was struggling. I struggled a little bit to make my worst of list.
Yeah, so did I.
My worst of list at its peak had 30 movies on it.
Right. Yeah. I could only pick 10. I mean, I was like, geez, what did I not like this year? This was a good year for movies, you know? And of course, I always feel it's a good year for movies every year. So I don't know.
All right, Bill Leon.
Here's what didn't make the cut. Downsizing, Justice League, Baywatch, and Swamp Ape. I haven't finished watching Swamp Ape, but it's just too inept, and it's this list is for people, you know, people that threw money at the screen and it didn't work, or like effort. So number 10 is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Ooh.
Number 9 is The Bye Bye Man, which I had a lot of fun with. That's why it's so low on the list.
It's such a stupid movie.
It is. Number 3 is Fist Fight with Charlie Day and Ice Cube, just in case you didn't remember what that was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot.
That's your number 8, you mean?
That's 7.
Oh, 7?
No, yeah, no, right. You're right. 8.
Okay.
7 is The Book of Henry, and 6 is Rock Dog.
Okay.
All right. So before we get into the absolute worst of list, did any of us have any enjoyable guilty pleasures, movies that we could not bring ourselves to put into the worst of list, even though they're bad movies, just because you enjoyed them that goddamn much? I
think despite my normal tastes, I ended up liking Bright a little bit more than I probably should have. I acknowledged its problems, though. Like it has some bad racial politics. It's also kind of very heavy-handed and lays on thick the whole fantasy crap. You know, it really does. You know,
it's got the same problem as Valerian, where it gives you a really interesting universe and then kind of whisks you off in a different direction for a story you don't care about.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, I would say that. But I ended up liking the camaraderie or whatever there was between Will Smith and Joel Edgerton. I kind of enjoyed that stuff more than the other stuff, and I think that kind of whisked it away, like you said, to a more positive outing ultimately.
That I marked in as guilty pleasures. One was Collide.
Yes.
Collide is one of those movies that it is by all sane measure a terrible movie. But what it does have that it has Ben Kingsley and it has Anthony Hopkins hamming it up in a wonderful way. Every scene that they are in that movie is a pleasure to watch. And thankfully, there's a good amount of them in the movie. It's not just a movie where they show up for a scene or two.
Oh yeah, they're in it for a lot. And then Ben Kingsley is probably you could tell me he was on drugs for that movie, and I would not question you at all.
Yeah, and Anthony Hopkins, I guarantee you, the director told Anthony Hopkins, "You are the Hannibal Lecter of mobsters." Because it's literally him doing his Hannibal Lecter, but as if he was like a European gangster.
You were talking, Hawk, a second ago about Ben Kingsley doing drugs. If I would imagine Anthony Hopkins does drugs equally as much, but I don't think he ingests them the same way we would normally ingest them.
I would not be surprised if both Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins hung out like in their trailer, just doing copious amounts of ganja.
Like I think Anthony Hopkins, when he does drugs, it's the liquid kind, and he drops them in his eyes.
Ooh.
That sounds like an Anthony Hopkins thing.
That sounds like something he would do. You know, it's like from Looper.
Yeah,
It's like
a little bit in his eye.
He's on the set of Thor, just like, where am I?
And oddly enough,
I am Odin.
Yeah.
I seem to have had a racing theme here because besides Collide, my other guilty pleasure of the year was Roger Corman's Death Race 2050.
That movie's awesome.
Because once again, Death Race 2050 is it's terrible, but it's one of those things where it's terrible, but it's kind of brilliantly bad.
Mm-hmm.
Childish humor, but yet childish to the point where there's an air of creativity throughout the film. Most notably in the one of the cars in the drivers in this death race competition is a computer car that goes through a reality crisis, and just watching this car struggle with the fact that it was programmed to kill is hilarious.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into it.
Oh, I have some guilty pleasures.
Oh, you do?
Okay, good.
King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
Okay.
All right, yeah, okay.
Because that movie is totally Guy Ritchie in ways that it really should not be, but you kind of dig it for that anyway, because, I mean, even David Beckham shows up as a character at one point.
Like
with the hair and everything.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
What?
Like Sting showing up in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah, it's just weird. And, there's the Guy Ritchie filming and filming style, and like there's just way too much movie going on. This was the first of 7 planned movies, and there's a lot of setup, and it's like this really crazy, just heavy metal retelling of King Arthur, and it's such an oddity, but I kind of really got a kick out of it.
What else do you have?
What
else do you have?
The Mummy, Tom Cruise.
Moomin shots, you mean? starring Ed Moomy.
Oh boy, we're gonna get into it later.
What is that noise?
Someone slapping their belly? What the hell?
That's me.
Oh, really?
And I'm not sure if I would put it anywhere near a worst of list, but I did like Beyond Skyline, and I've also developed a weird attachment to The Boss Baby.
Oh, right. Well, I still need to watch that.
That is Oscar nominated now. So
yes, the Oscar nominated Boss Baby.
Yes,
which is
Beyond Skyline. I still haven't finished it, but from what I've seen of it, I really dug it. This is a step up, if anything, from the first one.
Oh, it's a leap up.
It's a leap, exactly.
I think because it knows exactly what it's doing and has no problems with it.
It leaps tall buildings with a single bound. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else have any guilty pleasures?
You guys need to watch Swamp Ape. I need to finish it, but
is that a 2017 movie?
Yeah. Well, it's only an hour long, so and it's on YouTube. It's on some Birdemic shit, but in a different way.
All right, I'll give it a look. So we're gonna begin with our number 5. Number 5 is Alive.
We watched it at work the other day.
So who starts?
All right, you start, Bill.
Oh, because I went first. Okay. I thought Ken was going to go or something. No, that's okay. My number 5 is going to be a documentary called David Lynch, The Art Life.
I saw that on your list, and I was very curious because when I looked it up, it has like a 93% on.
I remember
you reading it, right?
I'm very curious. Tell us what was it you didn't like about it?
Well, it's funny because I put it on this list, and it's higher up than Justice League, which means, I had to have some feelings on this one. Why did I dislike this more than Justice League, especially when it's gotten almost universal acclaim, and the fucking Criterion Collection is releasing it.
And it's not like you don't like David Lynch.
No, I love David Lynch. I'm one of his, big fans and advocates. But when I saw the film, I was put to sleep many times by it, literally and figuratively, because it didn't go over anything new. This was just retreading information I already knew. I already was aware of.
How often does he bring up transcendental meditation in the movie?
He kind of brings it up indirectly.
Oh, okay.
Like he just kind of weaves it in through his weird sayings. But he mostly just goes over his history of of being an artist, not just in filmmaking, but like in painting too.
Mm-hmm.
And those parts are semi-interesting, but again, there have been other documentaries on David Lynch that have covered this very territory. This movie tries to do it in a stylized way a little bit. If I remember correctly, it focuses a lot on the paintings and sculptures themselves, like just camera shots of circling around the paintings or zooming in on them and kind of going up and down and observing the different details of each piece of art he's made and how he makes them. And he's a craftsman. He really gets his hands dirty when he makes art. But the problem is, again, this is territory that's already been covered and covered better in the past.
Right.
I think this filmmaker did a couple of he did a feature length and he did kind of a bonus feature documentary for Inland Empire that was about the production of Inland Empire. It was called Lynch One. I think
is it sort of like De Palma, where it just goes movie by movie?
No, it doesn't even go movie by movie. It's not even like that. And in De Palma, that was I consider De Palma to be a great film because it was like a commentary, like a running commentary track in a way.
Right.
And yeah, so like movie by movie, but yeah, go ahead.
Question about the movie. So you said that the movie just basically regurgitates things you already knew about David Lynch, which is disappointing. But you, as a film critic who's a big fan of David Lynch and who probably has not only seen a lot of these things through interviews and his movies, but have also sought out information about him.
Yeah.
Do you think that a layperson who's just coming across this documentary and wants to know more about David Lynch would enjoy it more?
No, I don't think so.
Is it all pretty easily accessible and well-known things about him in this movie?
Yes, there's easily accessible information in this movie, but on top of that, it's done in a way that's very full of itself.
Okay.
Like specifically the editing. It's and the style, the decisions of what to show and what not to show and when to show them. It's done in a way that, I almost fell asleep a couple of times, legitimately, because of it. It was just redundant and, like I said, it treaded familiar territory, things that I already knew and things that were already out there about Lynch. There was nothing exciting about this. It was just blah. And that's almost worse than technical folly. That's like, I think Francis Ford Coppola once said like a movie that aims high but misses or doesn't quite get there, is pretentious, and that's a horrible fate. So it's kind of like that. Anyone out there who is interested in Lynch and wants to see a really good documentary from last year, I would recommend Blue Velvet Revisited. I've
heard good things about that.
It's a great little documentary. It's incredibly stylized, but it kind of has to be because it's all this like great and brilliant behind the scenes footage and audio and interviews from the production of Blue Velvet. And it's like home movies in a way of each scene being crafted, like the lounge scene where she's singing Blue Velvet and the sequence with the ear and all these other bits. And it's done up with like Super 8 footage and 16 millimeter and stuff. And then you get interviews that are candid with David Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan and the producers and the cast and everything. And it adds a great perspective and context to one of the best movies Lynch has ever made and one of the best movies really that's probably ever been made. So by contrast, that movie was how you do a documentary on David Lynch. That and the filmmaker who did The Art Life did another documentary in the past called Lynch One, like number one, Lynch One. And that was about the production of Inland Empire plus Lynch's escapades into art.
It looks like it was re-released under just the name Lynch, by the way. I was just looking that up.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, but it had one on top, like almost like as a comma, or not a comma, sorry, an apostrophe or something. But that movie did what Art Life was trying to do much better. Art Life was just like a bad supplement.
I also recommend, there was a TV series in the early 2000s. that was just called The Directors, and there was an episode that chronicled his films. So if you're looking for sort of a movie-by-movie exploration, it's like an hour long, and it's a good portrait.
Well, Lynch is never going to give us what De Palma gave us. He's never going to sit down and give us a blow-by-blow account of each film.
Unless you agree to help him make quinoa.
Yeah, well, even with the quinoa, he gave stories about things that were not related to his films.
Right.
He just talked about Coca-Cola and visiting Europe.
That would be awesome.
That was awesome, though, but it was a great supplement to the Inland Empire DVD, but he didn't talk about movie history. He was just like, this one time I went off and, blah, blah, blah. So,
now, that said, oddly enough, though, another person who, even though you wouldn't expect it, who was a very unlikely person to take part in a documentary was Steven Spielberg. He notoriously hates going on at length about his past films.
Yeah. Right.
And the fact that they made that HBO film that came out last year was actually kind of a miracle. I mean, if you know, for instance, Spielberg through the DVDs of his films, he never participates in any special features. He's never done a commentary track. He's not comfortable in that. So what I'm saying is, if they could make Spielberg do it, there's a chance maybe someday we might be able to get Lynch together.
There's a chance, but there's a famous quote where someone asked him, I think it was like David Letterman or maybe Jay Leno or something. He was on a show and he says something about one of his movies. Lynch made an interesting statement, like, this movie's about this and that. And then the interviewer was like, "Can you expand on that?" And he goes, "No." So I just don't think he's gonna ever. Maybe on his deathbed, I don't know. But
all right, we're gonna go ahead and jump to the next.
I just wanted David Lynch on his deathbed, like he's like Citizen Kane, like, the sled is Rosebud.
it's just a sled. It represents his childhood and his wanting to be back to that age.
Oh, Bill L. That was a fantastic David Lynch.
impression. I'm basically just doing his Twin Peaks character. I think his name's Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon, right.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. I'll do my number 5, The Evil Within.
Oh,
yeah.
The Evil Within what?
Just Within.
But
Within. So The Evil Within, I've referenced a few times, and when it came out, I actually bought this on VOD because I was so intrigued by the story, I had to see it. The film was directed by Andrew Getty, who is, of course, a member of the Getty family, which, of course, those who saw All the Money in the World knows a little bit more about how fucked up that family is.
Do they own the gas stations?
They probably have a hand in
it. The Gettys were in oil, so yes.
Okay.
So anyway, so Andrew Getty was the I guess he was his relation to J. Paul Getty. Getty was his paternal grandfather. Anyway, Andrew Getty spent something like 12 years working on The Evil Within. It was a life's project. He sunk reportedly $4 to $6 million of his own money into this film. And what is fascinating about The Evil Within is that it's a terrible movie. It is Tommy Wiseau levels of bad acting, bad editing, bad cinematography. But
how's the ADR?
The ADR is not too. I can't complain too much about that. But here's the thing, though.
Yeah, that's the linchpin of it all.
This is what makes The Evil Within fascinating. Despite all of these major drawbacks, it's also got some really compelling horror ideas that, and some excellent special effects that he actually designed himself. And the only
very creative too.
Yeah, there's some creative ideas, but they're so horribly executed. And probably the main thing that makes this film so horrible and hard to watch is the fact that the lead character is this actor is playing a special needs kid, a teenage kid with a mental handicap, and it is one of the worst depictions of mental disability that I think has been put to film. I mean, we're talking simple Jack levels of awful.
It's a Family Guy joke, basically.
Yeah, it's
that level of baseness.
Though, but that said, if you're a fan of Michael Berryman, he's in this movie a lot
because of his face.
Yeah. This movie it's entertaining to watch. It's funny, but I had to put it on my worst of because it is just a clusterfuck. And sadly, Andrew Getty passed away before he could fully complete it. His family completed it on the back end after he passed away. Of course, Andrew Getty died of a drug overdose because so many members of the Getty family have. If you look at their history, it's addiction's kind of a problem for them.
Yeah.
Apparently, he died of methamphetamine use, a heart attack caused by meth. So, yeah, go meth.
Yeah, that was my number 9, Evil Within, and I agree on most of those points. I think it is very creative visually, but then I was actually not going to put it on my list because of some of the cool visual stuff that stuck in my mind. But then you kind of reminded me, and I rewatched it. It is on Amazon Prime now, so the rest of you guys can check it out. But it's got, like you said, the depiction of mental illness is awful, and the acting really isn't good either.
Right. The acting,
especially Sean Patrick Flannery, right?
Yeah, who's a decent actor, but
he's the other guy from Boondock Saints, right?
He's the other Boondock Saint.
Yeah. Right.
I know him from Suicide Kings.
Oh yeah.
Ain't them bodies Boondock Saint?
Can we? Is it wrong to say that Overnight is a better movie than Boondock Saints?
Honestly,
no.
Here's something that's interesting about Overnight. Watch it with the context now of what we know about Harvey Weinstein.
Oh my God!
He almost becomes the director becomes like a hero in a way.
Well, I wouldn't say a hero. He's still an asshole.
He's up against it. He's up against something that's actually vile. Basically.
Because I watched Overnight shortly after the news broke on the Weinstein scandal. So I watched it for the first time.
Oh, you've only just seen it last year.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is watching it with that context. I actually was, while I still think Troy Duffy's
total dick.
He's a total douche, but he didn't say or do anything to deserve being blackballed the way Harvey screwed him over, at least as far as the documentary shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because Harvey just straight up Miramax just stopped answering his phone calls, and these were phone calls to ask about basic things that he was promised. They just decided not to give him, even though he was under contract. And Harvey did that because he could, and you get the sense watching the film that Harvey Weinstein, is that kind of personality who can and will ruin you just because he feels like it.
Right.
So anyway, that said, what is your number 5, Bill Leon?
It is, and this, I don't know how you guys felt about this. I think you've all seen it. The Assignment.
That's higher up for me.
Okay.
We'll talk about it next. Hawk.
My number 5 is The Bye Bye Man.
Oh, nice. I get to talk about this.
It's bad.
You saw it in the theater, right?
Is based. I saw it in the theater, yes. I think I reviewed it for the site. First of all, it's based on a short story called The Bridge to Body Island.
Which sounds cooler, actually.
Yeah.
Which sounds cooler, but now it's called The Fucking Bye Bye Man, which is not even remotely scary.
It's weird how some of these movies get renamed. I mean, we're going to be watching 13th Warrior, and the 13th Warrior was originally supposed to be called The Eaters of the Dead. Why can't you? Isn't that an awesome name?
That's an awesome name.
That sounds like fucking metal.
It does.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I saw the 13th Warrior. So.
All right. So tell us about the Bye Bye Man.
It has to do. Okay, there's so many just dumb things about this movie to the point where I saw this at a late. It's like a Friday night screening, so that brings in the kid crowds, like teenagers and young adults that like to see those PG-13 horror movies.
Yeah.
people in the theater were laughing at this movie. There was no tension or fear in the theater. The people that would usually eat this stuff up, they were guffawing at some of the dumb shit in this movie. Like, the Bye Bye Man. The idea of the Bye Bye Man as a monster is that if you think his name or say it, it will cause you to kill people.
And so they hammer that shit in by having the characters go, "Don't think it, don't say it, don't think it." And even the posters have that like written all over it.
Because someone's going crazy, like writing it on the walls, and in the opening scene, like the guy wrote it on the walls. He even like wrote it with his finger on the dusty TV.
That opening scene. Well, wait. Let's talk about that opening scene because that should have been dynamic, but it was this flat one. I guess I don't know if it was actually one take, but
it was a single tracking shot, and that was fine. I mean, it was the best part of the movie.
It was, and
about
it was
like a victim of the Bye Bye Man who kills his entire family. But visually, it still wasn't very good. Somebody trying to do a tracking shot in ways that were outside of their ability to do so.
The
Bye Bye Man,
that childhood game where you decide on, if you think about it, you lose, and so you'll just be sitting there and be like, "Oh, I lost. Oh shit."
Yeah.
So we all lost the game. And they said, "Let's make a horror movie out of that."
My favorite parts of this movie were the bad dialogue and the abrupt deaths.
Yeah.
Shit. How does that like goth chick die? She's like driving. She's like parked on a train track, right?
No, didn't she like hit the cleaning lady or something? There's like some black lady that she ran over.
Oh man, I was
car flip. I can't remember.
I was drinking with a group of people watching this at a house, not in theater. So that's the perfect viewing experience for this.
I just have to ask: does this movie end with like a total action hero moment where like the main creature is like blown up in a huge explosion just before the person says "Bye Bye Man"?
The Bye Bye Man lives. The Bye Bye Man survives because they wanted to make sequels to this, and the end is like this little girl, and I don't remember what fucking awful line she has, but. The dad is like, "Did you see anything out there?" And she's like, "Daddy, my eyes aren't flashlights," or some shit.
Yeah,
like
some like stupid little girl thing,
Yeah, but it was like I cracked up so hard at that line and her terrible delivery of it.
Yes, there's a lot of really funny stuff in the movie. Like there's some guy that runs a tulip shop, and he's one of those expository old guys that knows more about he runs his little shop. He minds his own business, but he knows more about it than he's letting on, and eventually he gets to tell them the expository part of this monster.
Who's that old lady that's in this? It's like an elderly actress who's
Faye Dunaway's in this.
Faye Dunaway is in this fucking movie.
All right,
catches on fire and dies.
Yes.
As you will.
Yes.
It's worth noting the Bye Bye Man is played by Doug Jones.
Yes.
That's something. I mean,
he beat,
which is kind of cool.
He's the governor of Alabama now.
Oh right, yeah.
Bye Bye Man.
All right. So speaking of that, we'll move on to our number 4s. Bill Arsenault, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Michael Bay's Transformers: The Last Night.
Transformers.
That's what?
Further on my list.
Higher.
Oh, okay. That's higher. Yeah. All right.
All right. My number 4 is Salt and Fire.
I was hoping that you'd have that on there.
Yes.
Because I want to talk about this movie.
Okay, so it's not higher on anyone else's list.
No.
Okay. Salt and Fire is, without a doubt, the worst film ever made by director Werner Herzog.
Yes.
And now, Hawk, you can back me up. You've seen this movie, too. It is a clusterfuck from the first moment.
It's a disaster.
It stars Michael Shannon and Veronica Ferris and Gael Garcia Bernal. And you're like, wow, that's a nice cast. How can you fuck that up? Well, he found a goddamn way. I highly respect Werner Herzog. I think he's a great director. I think his documentaries are fantastic, and his dramas, maybe not so much recently, but he's made some of the most intriguing and creative films of our time. And this movie, though, Christ. So here's the plot of the film. 3 scientists are being sent to South America as part of some sort of UN investigation into some sort of an ecological disaster. And they are kidnapped by Michael Shannon, who is the head of this major company that was responsible for the disaster. And he proceeds to kind of torment them in a way by like philosophizing and going on long speeches about things. And then finally, there's literally no other way of explaining that what happens in the middle of this film. And then in the final third of the film, he takes the girl, one of the 3 scientists, out into the middle of the desert, drops her off with 2 blind children, and leaves her there with just a little bit of water for like a couple weeks, and then comes back and proceeds to explain that he was responsible for the disaster and he's going to accept his responsibility. And I hope you learned something from this whole desert experience.
I remain convinced that Werner Herzog is pulling a prank. He is taking the piss with this movie. I don't know if he's just fucking around or if he wanted to try and see if he could make a shitty movie with a ecological moral and just put it out there and see how many people, based on those 2 things, would just call it a de facto masterpiece because it's Werner Herzog making an ecological drama.
Next season on Nathan For You, Nathan helps Werner Herzog make a terrible movie.
You know, you might be onto something there, just because I wouldn't put it past him to do something like that. And I just pulled up Rotten Tomatoes. The movie currently has a 31%, but here's some of the positive reviews. Salt and Fire, you see, is a well-made folly, and like camp classics of yore, it rolls out enough portent and absurdity to leave you snickering. So this is a negative positive review.
I thoroughly enjoy this movie in terms of like that bad movie way, because it's just so wacky.
It is.
My favorite part was when the wheelchair guy just gets out of his wheelchair.
Yeah.
And she's, oh, is this, the girl's like, is this some kind of miracle? He's like, oh no, I only use the chair when I'm tired of life. And
this is, yeah, seriously, there's so many bogus like fortune cookie philosophy lines in this. I would not put it past Herzog to be like sick of people talking up his philosophy and saying that he's so profound, and just saying, I'm going to see if I can make a film that is so incredibly unprofound that people
whose money did he make this with?
Okay, so the movie was there's a few different production companies involved. It looks to me like I'm looking up. One of them is a German company, another is a American company, and another is a Mexican company.
Yeah, it was a big, combined effort.
Yeah, and Herzog. There are some actually really neat shots in this film, courtesy of Herzog's longtime cinematographer Peter Zeitlinger, and the fact that this film was shot in the salt flats of South America. Another possibility to explain this film is Herzog wanted to visit South America again and get paid to do it.
So this is his version of an Adam Sandler movie.
I won't spoil what it is. My favorite shot is the very last one of the film, which is so fucking dumb. Like, it feels like it's supposed to mean something, but it kind of really doesn't at all.
If you watched this movie without the context of knowing who Werner Herzog was, you would think that this is just the work of the most overly pretentious, pompous person ever. Yes. And the fact that there's the baggage of knowing who this is, you have to wonder, he has to know. So there has to be some sort of reason behind this madness.
I'm giving it a couple years to find out what it is, but I'm very curious as well. I did want to point out too, while we're on that subject of the ecological movies, I tried watching The Last Face, the Sean Penn movie with Javier Bardem and Charlize Theron, and I couldn't do it. It's not on my list because I didn't finish it because it is so boring. I wanted to throw myself out of a window.
That's the only reason Bright's not on my list.
I got through Bright because I was cooking at the time, and so it worked.
I'm pretty sure I was doing something as well.
All right, so next, number 4, Bill Leon.
I think only Hawk saw this. Beauty and the Beast live action.
Oh, really? You didn't like that?
I hated it because I love the original and live action. Like, first of all the fucking objects in the house or the castle are fucking computer generated. So, like, when they do Be Our Guest, it's just a straight up fucking CG cartoon.
The Be Our Guest is a fucking acid trip.
Yeah, and I mean, this doesn't need to exist. And it just, I don't know, like, I felt dirty watching this. Like, I just really love the original and the songs and everything that goes with it. And also, that shit's like barely 90 minutes long. It's brisk. It's to the point. Anything this movie tried to do to, like, make it longer or flesh it out more fell right on its face.
What do you think about Gaston and
LeFou, played by Josh Gad.
Which Josh Gad is an actor who I never really think about him being talented, but whenever I watch him, I remember that he's very talented.
He is. I thought he was well cast as LeFou. Gaston, I know you liked the performance. I thought it could have been a little more over the top. First off, I don't know. Really, there were talks before this was cast that it was going to be The Rock.
That would have been great.
Because he's got the build and he's got the ability to have that bit larger than life personality. I didn't get the larger than life personality from the actor in the film, and also he was a little too small in my opinion. Gaston's supposed to be this big, beefy dude.
Yeah, I thought Luke Evans was pretty good.
I didn't hate him. I
just an actor who could pull it off when I think about it. But you're right. When I picture Gaston, I think of this huge, muscular dude, and I don't think of that when I think of Luke Evans.
That's fair. I think his performance as being a charismatic asshole kind of elevated
everybody,
the physicality.
Everybody, to the crew, to the costume people, to like everybody involved is trying. This was just unnecessary. Like, this to me does not need to exist. I watched it once. I will never watch it again. I'm just going to watch the original one because it's just flat out better.
Sure, and I don't actually disagree with that at all. It doesn't need to exist. It is almost literally the cartoon, except that it's live action. But I mean, as far as it being a movie, I won't watch it again, I don't think. But I enjoyed what it was. It's fine as that story, even though we've already had that story about 27 years ago.
Yes, this movie actively made me mad, which nothing I've discussed on my list so far has.
I think I'll stick. Go ahead.
What were you saying?
I was just gonna. I think I instead will stick to David Bowie's Beauty and the Beast.
I've never seen that. I know of Ron Perlman's Beauty, and not that Ron Perlman is like the creative force behind that Beauty and the Beast, but
Beauty and the Beast is a song from his album Heroes. It's the lead song. Anyway, sorry, I was just being music geeky. All right, so
wait. There's one last thing I got to add with this, is that I'm watching this movie, I'm getting mad at this movie, and then I'm thinking, like, oh my God, for the next decade, I'm going to have to see more of these fucking things. Aladdin live action, Mulan live action.
Guy Ritchie's live action Aladdin.
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, yeah, right.
I cannot wait for Guy Ritchie's Aladdin movie. That's going to be nuts.
Supposedly, they're darkening up white people for it.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Like the extras.
Like Short Circuit?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. I can't wait. This is going to be such
All right. Hawk, what is yours?
The Snowman.
Ooh, that's higher up on my list.
Right on.
Ooh.
So right on to number 3, huh?
Number 3, Bill A.
The Assignment.
Which I think
did you all watch this?
Yeah, didn't I mention this movie like 2 years ago to you guys?
You mentioned it a while back. Yeah,
the movie came out in 2017 as an official release, but it technically premiered in 2016.
Yeah, I mean it's been sitting around for a long time just because of the controversy.
Right. So speaking of the controversy, since you brought it up, Bill A., tell us why is this movie so controversial?
Well, Jesus, I mean, the story is fucking what's her name?
Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez plays a man
with a really awful fake beard.
An awful goatee beard,
with a fake beard that's terrible, and yet somehow not as bad as Dave Franco's.
Yeah, it still wasn't Dave Franco in The Disaster Artist bad, but it was still pretty bad. Basically, the makeup team did not do a good job in convincing us that Michelle Rodriguez was initially supposed to play a man.
See, I actually would have bought it more. I would have bought it more if the character she was playing was a slightly more effeminate man. Like, they didn't have to go with the whole beard thing. They could have.
But his character was that he was a badass assassin, and we can't have a flamboyant badass assassin because
just make it look like young Jack Sparrow from the new Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hey, wait! Before y'all say anything, anime has been making that shit work for years.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even to the point where when Steam Boy got localized, the main male character was played by Anna Paquin from X-Men.
I've never heard her name said that way. I say Paquin.
I doubt that's.
You're like Anna Paquin.
Paquin.
It's worth noting that The Assignment is directed by Walter Hill, a director who his entire career has been accused of being incredibly sexist. This film does not make a.
It doesn't make a good argument for the opposite.
Yeah, right.
Feelings. Yes, this movie. The plot basically is Michelle Rodriguez is a male assassin, and we see her even have sex with another woman. Male on female is what it's supposed to be, and there's like this awkward digital replacing that's going on, like her face is put onto a male model's body or something. I don't know.
Didn't she have like a CGI penis or something?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
It's not CGI. It's actually it was
like a dildo or something. Or
well, no, it was a makeup thing.
Prosthetic.
Prosthetic.
Was it a pool cue like in the Greasy Strangler?
He apparently bragged about it on in an interview at one.
Yeah, they made one for me. Isn't that cool?
I got a buddy.
I got a buddy seeing the dick and being very alarmed.
Anyway, the plot basically is Sigourney Weaver, and this is the wraparound for the movie. She's being interviewed in like an insane asylum / prison, and she's going over why she did this this forced sex change operation on the hitman played by Michelle Rodriguez, who is a man. And it transforms her into Michelle Rodriguez, who she really is, a woman. And this is basically becomes a revenge story where Michelle Rodriguez has to go get revenge on Sigourney Weaver for being turned into a woman permanently, supposedly permanently, because I think there's a scene where they even go over that. Like, can I just be changed back into a man? And they're like, we can't just grow you a penis, like it's, because I think he actually asked, like, what about my dick, and they're like, we can't do that. I'm sorry, we can do like another sex change, but it won't be the same, you'll still have the parts, it's just sorry, you're shit out of luck, I guess. And so she's like, I want revenge, and the movie's basically what you expect it to be, except there's this weird added philosophy that Sigourney Weaver adds to it. She's like giving a Hannibal Lecter, but as a cool and collected female.
Yeah.
She's wearing the straitjacket, and she's like, I did this to show that gender and is important. I don't know what the fuck her line of thinking was as a character.
It was something like, "Oh, I've liberated you," or some shit like that.
Yeah, something like that made no sense. Like nothing about this movie really makes any sense, and it really is just anger-inducing.
I found an interview just a moment ago from The Hollywood Reporter in which Rodriguez explained how she picked out her own prosthetics, specifically looking for, in her own words, I want the biggest cock we could possibly get. I was adamant about it. I've encountered a few skinny boys with really big, so I thought, why not get one?
Yeah, I read that interview too. See, I like how she censors the word dick the second time.
See, I don't have a problem with this movie being made.
No.
I want to stress this right now. I don't have a problem with Walter Hill or anyone else, Michelle Rodriguez being enthusiastic about it, Walter Hill wanting to make this movie. I think the premise is a little too wacky, maybe, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't have been made.
Sure.
You could totally make this into something fun and schlocky and all that, but the problem is it's like it's resting on these laurels that are just really slimy and not thought out too well.
With the right direction and the right script, this might have worked, but I think Walter Hill was probably
could work as a good
choice
B
for
movie.
this.
Yeah, I agree. Walter Hill was probably not the best choice, but in a weird way, he kind of is in terms of he's a filmmaker who does what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He damn it, this is my story. I'm gonna make it. That kind of guy. I probably would have given this to Stuart Gordon, honestly. I think that would have been really fun. But that being said, it's not a good movie by any means. It's kind of a hard watch because even though it's kind of funny at times,
it's very funny.
The Sigourney Weaver shit is very boring. And what's that, Bill?
This is lower on my list just because I struggle to even remember like specific things that happen in this. Now, when you sit there and tell me the plot of it, it's hilarious, but seeing it play out in the movie itself is like this.
It's not very exciting. Yeah, it's ultimately very flat, and there are these moments where they could have gone in a really exciting direction. Like they were teasing the sexual tension between the now transformed into a female Michelle Rodriguez and her roommate, who was basically a date from when she was a man.
Yeah,
and there's this tension between the two, and I'm thinking like, how are they going to play this off? Because she's used to being a man, and now she wants to have sex with this woman, but the relationship's different because they're both women now. So it's like, what exactly are they going to do? How are they going to play? How are they going to do this? And then they never do anything with it.
Yeah, the roommate just kind of accepts her, and they still love each other, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Well, the roommate ends up being like part of the plan.
Yeah, and I think it's weird that in kind of I think what Walter Hill's trying to do is like, oh, you know what? If you get gender reassignment surgery, it's not that big of a deal because you're still you. But in doing that, he kind of downplays why people that get gender reassignment surgery consider it such an important lifestyle. Not lifestyle, but an important change for them identity-wise.
Yeah, this movie isn't really progressive.
It tries to be.
Well, it's attempting for something. Yes, I do agree. It is attempting to get at a point that's. The problem is that the point it's trying to get to is without it's not within its reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's he doesn't know how to articulate it very well, whatever he's getting at, and it comes off very confused and muddled and kind of really offensive at times.
Grandpa's not woke.
Exactly. Grandpa's very unwoke. He's napping through the new millennium.
So rather than watching The Assignment, watch literally any other Walter Hill film. I mean, even his other films that aren't particularly good are still better than this.
I like Bullet to the Head.
Some people do, yeah. I mean, it's not terrible.
It's dumb, but it's really fun.
Seriously, like Stallone looked. I remember I never saw the movie. I only saw the trailer, and the trailer was kind of exciting a little bit. Stallone's like this badass guy with like super big muscles and tattoos and shit. He's like, bang, boom, bada bing, you killed the guy. Yeah.
There's a part. I'll tell you this, Bill. His character in Bullet to the Head will go to a bar with his own bottle of Bullet bourbon because he pays for a glass and drinks his own bourbon at the bar.
So it's a bring your own beer bar?
No, he just does. No, it's not a bring your own beer bar. They have
There are some bars that allow you to bring your own alcohol as long as it's in a paper bag. I learned that on Bar Rescue.
Oh yeah, no, this is not that. He just comes to the bar and the guy's like, "What do you have, buddy?" He's like, "I'm just gonna buy a glass," and he pays him like $5.
Can I get a commemorative Looney Tunes glass? Thank you.
he just pays like $5 for a glass and pulls out a bottle of Bullet Bourbon because that's the name of the movie, and drinks his bourbon. It's super dumb.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Speaking of super dumb, my number 3 is The Snowman.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
A movie that is literally unfinished.
Yeah.
How is it I want to know this. How is it unfinished? I don't understand.
So they basically what it came down to is they were going to get shipped off to Norway and film all this stuff, and then they kind of got behind on the schedule, but they had no more time on the actors' schedules or the shooting budget. And they're just like, well, I guess we're just not going to film these last 5 scenes that we
need. The director has said that there is...
We ran out of time, sorry.
The director has said that there is 10 to 15% of the screenplay missing from this film.
And they try like hell to salvage that in the editing room.
That sounds like something that Troma... Sounds like something Troma would end up having as a problem but in those situations though, Lloyd Kaufman knows how to handle it. He's like, just remove 10 more pages, whatever. We gotta keep shooting.
Except that Troma isn't going to spend $35 million on a movie.
Yeah, you know what's baffling about this movie is it's produced by Martin Scorsese, who was originally going to direct, and so when he didn't, it's the guy that did the Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but there's so much talent in this movie.
Martin Scorsese backed out of this movie because he knew.
Probably for a reason, yeah.
He
knew.
And Thomas Alfredson is not a bad director. He actually, Thomas, whatever. He was the director of Let the Right One In, I believe. Yeah, he directed Let the Right One In. He directed Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the 2011 film.
Did he do the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, or did I mess that up?
No, he did not.
Okay, I was thinking of someone else.
But still, he's known for having done some good movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone will as far as horror films, Let the Right One In is solid.
It's top shelf.
Yeah. But The Snowman is not.
I love that on film Twitter, there's like this meme going on of I gave you all the clues. That kind of thing. And it's different interpretations of that for different topics. And it's the funniest shit I've seen it. And I haven't even seen the movie.
Well, that's the problem is the trailers and the posters kind of sell this as a cat and mouse game where the killer is feeding him clues and just playing him from behind the scenes. Like, who is this killer guy and why is he always one step ahead of the police? But the movie is just not that at all. Like they totally don't even do any of that in the actual movie.
Yeah. This movie is just a series of unfocused scenes. I think the single worst and most embarrassing aspect of this film, though, is unfortunately the way Val Kilmer's character is treated.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Val Kilmer's in it.
Yeah, Val Kilmer's in this film, and how his character... The problem was Val Kilmer at the time of this film was going through some treatment for his cancer surgery.
Yeah.
And as a result,
I didn't know he had cancer. Sorry.
Yeah, he did. And he does. And anyway, his voice was completely shot. And so the director, because of the rushed schedule, rather than wait until Kilmer was better and bring him in, completely redubs Kilmer with a different voice.
And it sounds awful.
It sounds awful. Whoever did the looping did not even attempt to approximate Val Kilmer's mouth movements. So they're
paging Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman.
And that's in the few shots of the film where you actually see him talking. They pull a total Night Train to Mundo Fine, where it's like you never see people actually speaking on camera.
Yeah, like the first half of his introductory scene is the camera's looking at the back of his head while you hear the ADR voice, and so they try as much as possible to not have to sync things up.
You mean Beast of Yucca Flats?
No. Night Train to Mundo Fini is Red Zone Cuba.
Yeah, it's the same movie.
Yeah, it is.
Beast and Yucca Flats is that's a different movie by Francis
Right, yeah,
Coleman.
that's a different movie, but they're both...
That's the one where that famously doesn't show anyone talking.
Is that song also in Beast?
No, that was just in Red Zone Cuba.
But in both of those films, they're major audio.
Yeah, there are major audio problems, but the bulk. I thought you were talking about Beast, because Beast is mostly no one talking on screen.
Okay, fair enough. I should have said Beast, but for some reason, Night Train to Mundo Fine came out.
Night Train to Mundo Fine.
So actually, when we first talked about this movie, Ken, back on the episode that we talked about it on, I didn't actually realize that the Val Kilmer scenes were flashbacks.
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't establish that at all. I
just kind of like, oh, here's Val Kilmer over here doing his thing while the regular investigation is going on over here, and then you were talking about a flashback. I was like, wait, what? That was a flashback?
Well, like oh yeah, J.K. Simmons is in this movie.
For like 10 minutes.
And it's never really established. Like his character's a red herring that doesn't need to be there. Probably the single biggest laugh I had watching this movie, though, has to be when Michael Fassbender goes to his apartment, and they established earlier that someone's going to be spraying his apartment with, like, for bugs and shit. And there's the guy who's in his apartment spraying is listening to Popcorn, the song Popcorn, and dancing like a friggin' fool.
That ended up being the killer.
Yeah,
because he went downstairs and the fumigation guy was downstairs.
Now, here's the thing. I mentioned this because, that alone could have been an interesting and kind of creepy scene if that was like, if the reveal was that was the killer after all. But the thing was, they made it blatantly obvious that Michael Fassbender is the worst detective in the world, because the last thing he did prior to this sequence was he witnessed a murder in which that song was playing.
Yeah.
So you hear
wasn't that? Go ahead.
You hear the song Popcorn playing loudly, and a person turns up brutally murdered. And then the next thing you do is you go home to your apartment and you hear the song blasting, and there's a dude with his face covered dancing like a madman to it. Are you, as a police officer, going to at least tell the guy to take his mask off so that you can find out that, whether it's the person that you saw earlier?
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
Wasn't one of the murders like a girl and then her twin sister, played by the same actress, shows up like 5 minutes later?
Yes.
For a second, you're like, wait a second, she didn't die? And then the girl's like, oh, my twin sister, who I haven't talked to in a while.
They pull a beer fest. They totally pull a landfill.
So my biggest laugh. So this movie, Michael Fassbender's character is called Harry Hull.
Oh, you're right.
Which is so in the Norwegian, or the novel, I think it's Norwegian. The correct pronunciation of the name would put a lilt at the end of the surname, so it'd be Harry Hola. Or
in the original Norwegian, his name is Harry Pussy.
Oh, come on.
It'd be Hola or something like that, but they could have just kept that pronunciation, but no, they just Americanize it, so it's Harry Hull, and nobody.
When
he first gets to his apartment, and he meets the fumigation guy for the first time. The guy gets up like, "You must be Harry Hull." And it's just like, it would be fine if they never just like, it's his Harry Hull, whatever. Like, it's that could be a bad enough name, but there are moments in the script where direct attention is called to the fact that is his name, and it's not supposed to be funny.
Yeah, no.
And then of course Harry Hull's an alcoholic, and so the first time you see him, he has passed out drunk in a snowy sandbox in a playground, and there's just kids playing around him.
That's pretty.
He
fun.
Gets.
I mean, Michael Fassbender tries his best in this movie, but it's just not a good movie.
It sounds like Bad Santa. He's Harry Hull. He gets drunk in sandboxes that are covered in snow while children are playing around him.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he was trying to pick up some soccer moms or something, but he was also drinking.
So, Bill Leon, what is your number 3?
Oh God, it's the Emoji Movie. Because and really, I wouldn't even say like the movie itself is this huge disaster or it's one of the worst fucking movies I watched last year, but what it represents and the fact that parents who don't give a shit what they show their kids took children to see this in the movie theater. Like, it just fucking makes me sad. Like, there's so much better stuff out there for kids these days that you could be showing them that'll probably help them appreciate creative, cool stuff. And, you know, people took their children to go watch these little emoji characters play Candy Crush for 20 minutes.
I do appreciate the fact that Emoji Movie is the movie that basically brought down T.J. Miller.
Yeah.
Because there was a review that a film critic wrote. I believe her name is Danielle Schulzman. I'm friends with on Facebook and follow her on Twitter. And he wrote her a very ugly email that she eventually posted publicly, like after several months, and then the T.J. Miller scandal hit, and people were like, "Holy crap, this guy's a real dickbag," you know, like just the stuff he wrote to her, and he was like really upset about her review of the Emoji Movie,
right?
But he also took to Twitter too, if I recall. He was like responding to the backlash. We tried making a good movie, guys.
He has said that. Yeah, he said that publicly. There was an interview probably at the premiere of this where T.J. Miller's being interviewed, and he said, like, we figured the movie's going to get made regardless. So if I get involved, I'm funny. I can make it funny. You didn't really make it funny.
I'm gonna make you angry, Bill Leon, with something that you probably already know. And
what's that?
I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but reportedly, this is the movie that Sony decided to make instead of the animated Popeye film.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And Genndy Tartakovsky is not working on Hotel Transylvania 3, right? He has left Sony.
I believe so, but I'm not sure.
I hope to God that's the case, because he is. Yeah, fucking Sony just
better than Sony. Sony really needs to. It's funny because Blade Runner 2049 was released by Sony, and I'm surprised that movie didn't have any major issues with Sony trying to interfere with it, because that's their thing, is they just fucking mess with things. With movies, they take good movies and fuck them up.
Villeneuve just had that much clout that Sony couldn't fuck with him.
I really don't even want to sit here and talk about the Emoji Movie itself. It's just what this represented to me, as far as like the shit that they're willing to shill out to children. There is a very old video of Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, talking about the Garbage Pail Kids movie. And how when he was a little kid, he wanted to go see it. His mother said, "No, I'm not taking you to see that. This is trash. This is a commercial." And I hope that we have parents that make a decision like that in 2017 against shit like this, because it almost feels like brainwashing these fucking kids.
Yeah,
Spotify, Twitter, I didn't feel disgusting watching the movie because I was prepared for what I was going to watch. But as it's resonated with me over the past week or two since I saw it, I'm just like, no, man, there's nothing okay about this. Like, these are little kids. These are blank slates that you're feeding this garbage to.
Yeah, it's a bad movie. Like, it is nothing but product placement and pop culture references. I think the animation is pretty good. It's very colorful.
Yes,
I liked the look of the emoji characters. They kind of did a good job of bringing them in to the 3D space, but still having to have that 3D that 2D look. It was kind of like Captain Underpants did it better, that style of animation, in terms of the emojis themselves. But I think that the style they chose worked for that movie.
I feel like I probably continue with what you were saying.
I was going to say, but that's not, it doesn't redeem a single iota of the rest of the film, and how downright kind of toxic it is.
I feel like, and I think I said something similar to this last week when we were talking about the Emoji Movie, but look at the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie should have turned out to be some marketing trash, but they got creative people to work on it, and they gave it that stop motion style. The Emoji Movie didn't have to turn out this way. You could have gotten, I don't know who, but there's got to be somebody out there that could pull something better than what they did, because again, I just really felt like there was
no passion at all.
But this is maybe a little too far, but like potentially harmful to children. At least, like, can you imagine a little kid and they're like, my favorite movie is the Emoji Movie, and it's like, oh my god, like there's so much better, creative, legitimately funny stuff out there that you could show your kids. And
the problem is we have a generation of parents who take their kids to whatever movie their kids want to go see. They don't give it quality.
I didn't grow up with like a perfect track record of watching movies. Like, I will say, like, everything I'm thinking about that I like, Fern Gully or Stuart Little, shit that's like not that good, it's at least a competently made movie. And not that the Emoji Movie isn't, but it's just product placement. I would be repeating myself to really go any further. I don't like the idea of them taking advantage of children's inability to discern the fact that they're being advertised to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So, Hawk, what is your number 3?
Transformers: The Last Night.
Ooh. All right. Have that conversation.
It's horrible. It's the worst Transformers movie.
Yes.
I think. I know. I have a couple friends who maintain that Age of Extinction is still the worst, but I would disagree, because I think Age of Extinction had a couple of interesting things, like the Transformer that has a gun for a face. That was kind of cool. And then this movie has a couple of ideas that are neat too, like, the Transformers existing during the times of King Arthur, and there's a fucking robot dragon, and the staff is cool, but it doesn't work at all.
Well, for starters, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Considering in context of the series of Michael Bay films, like the mythology, none of it matches up.
No, because the first movie, it's like, oh, Transformers came to Earth like last week or something, and then
and then suddenly in this movie, over time it's changed. But this movie, Anthony Hopkins is like, no, they were here way back during King Arthur and World War II.
Yeah.
And Bumblebee, Mark Wahlberg looks at Bumblebee like, you were in World War II? And Bumblebee's like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. Even Bumblebee is confused by this shit.
It's one thing that I found really creepy is that the daughter is not in this movie. She has like one voicemail, and I really do honestly believe that the reason she's not in the movie is because the way that she was filmed and shot in Age of Extinction was really sexualizing a 18-year-old girl who was playing a 17-year-old girl, which makes it even worse. So the ick factor made her not be in this one.
That's possible, but you see, I remember there being a few shots that were a little icky, but for the most part, it wasn't nearly as bad as what they did with
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, but Megan Fox was
bad, but it was still gross.
Megan Fox was older though, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was of age and everything, but I'm just saying, like,
that's the problem. Is Tessa?
Those movies over-sexualized her. Tessa, I didn't feel like she was wearing skimpy clothing, but it was more like she's a teenager.
I know, but then there's a couple. I mean, the camera doesn't really drink her up or anything, but there's an entire subplot about why it's okay for her Irish boyfriend to fuck her.
The subplot was disturbing, and they just kind of brush over it, like. And the guy even pulls out a card. Yep, Romeo and Juliet law.
Yeah, and that's just.
I was like, why do you have that card on you? Is that to? Do you date girls that are that young all the time?
Exactly. Like, why is that just even? Anyway, that we're stating a case for why Age of Extinction is worse.
I'm not surprised at all.
I actually feel Age of Extinction is the better of the series, actually, by barely, you know. I mean,
like out of the entire series.
If you can call any of them, well, of the ones I've seen, I haven't seen all of them, but
have you seen Dark of the Moon?
I've seen pieces of it. And I find it confusing.
I thought Dark of the Moon was very boring. However, the final act of the assault on Chicago is some really, really good action filmmaking.
I remember being pissed off by Revenge of the Fallen.
Oh, Revenge of the Fallen was awful.
It was a dumpster fire. Yeah,
I was actually going to say that exact term, dumpster fire. That is absolutely
the robot testicles thing. I was like, oh,
the robot testicles, and like, wow, that movie is horrible. Before The Last Night came out, Felix decided that she wanted to marathon all of the Transformers movies.
Oh God.
And so I joined her for that. And yes, Revenge of the Fallen is no less horrible all these years later.
But The Last Night kind of tops it for. It's like there's this weird grandeur that's going on. That's very. It's a delusional grandeur, but it's like it's trying to achieve something like epic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the problem is it's adding shit that it shouldn't be adding, and the way it's adding it is just confusing and muddling everything that's come before it. Not that the stuff before it was competent to begin with, script-wise, but it's making it worse.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like one specific thing in this movie that was just so bad on a script level, but it just didn't.
Well, let's see. Hot Rod is a Frenchman now.
Yeah.
And he also exists because what's weird is in Transformers 4, we're told that the Transformers are on the run by the government, right?
Right.
And there's only a few of them left, and they're the ones that have to save the world from a new plot. Okay, great, that's fine. We understand why, because of the Battle of Chicago, whatever. In this movie, suddenly there are other Transformers around that weren't in the previous film.
Yeah,
they were just missing or something, or they're new, or whatever, or maybe the writers wrote themselves in a. You know, again, painting themselves against the wall or whatever. Yeah, right, exactly.
And it's what's even more startling is that there's a fucking Transformers think tank. There's a writer's room for Transformers that all they do is develop stories and maintain continuity.
And this is what they come up with.
This is what they came up with. Yeah,
I can give you a culprit for that. This was the head of the writer's room was Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah.
Who is no longer involved with the franchise.
Yeah. There's also the character of Cogman, who's just a robot, like a C-3PO robot for Anthony
Butler.
Hopkins.
Yeah.
He's like the Butler robot that's made out of clocks or something.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like he's a steampunk robot. You know?
Yeah.
He's got
and there's the British Megan Fox.
There's her who's like his daughter or something. Anthony Hopkins' daughter or something. And,
I don't think so. Was she?
Or maybe not. Maybe she was just someone that he knew. I don't know.
I can't remember.
I don't remember either. And then there was this plot where they continue the Optimus Prime in space to find his makers. The makers turn him, and then he comes back to Earth to steal that MacGuffin that they're after. And then he comes to his senses at the last fucking second.
After 5 minutes of being evil.
After 5 minutes of being evil, and then he's like, and then Mark Wahlberg gives him a speech that's inspirational, which isn't. It's like the most blunt and muscle-headed speech. Like, we gotta be better than this, bro.
All these Transformers movie end with like a speech.
Yeah, but this time it was Mark Wahlberg giving it, and it was before the climax.
Yeah,
I don't know why we can't just all these automatons and the Deceptic droids. They can't get along. I don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a submarine that's
really
also a fucking transformer, a submarine, a World War II submarine that's a transformer.
Yeah.
There's they go underwater go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, the trailers had the Optimus Prime being evil things. Like, oh, that's cool. Optimus Prime at the beginning of the movie turns evil, and he's the antagonist for the movie. Then the movie comes out, and they're like, actually, you know what? Fuck you. We're not going to do that. We're going to give you this other boring story instead.
Yeah, he's only the villain for, like you said, 5 minutes, really.
I think I made a joke on Twitter that Optimus Prime is probably literally in more posters for the Last Night than he is actual minutes in the movie.
And what they were suggesting with those posters was that he was going to kill Bumblebee.
Yeah, which would have been awesome. I was so excited for Bumblebee to die.
If they had really made Optimus Prime into the villain and he's like the one they got to take down and everything, and then they turn him at the end, that would have meant something. At least,
or like they join up with Megatron, and Megatron's like, "Calm down, these humans are mine, not yours." God,
do you remember that fucking sequence where they're going over the bad guys? They do a montage,
it's like Suicide Squad,
where they do the titles of their names. And
yes, I do remember that.
Galvatron is now Megatron again. He's no longer calling himself Galvatron. He's like, no, I'm just Megatron again. Whatever.
Yeah, isn't Galvatron a planet?
No,
yes.
Well, maybe,
he's supposed to be.
In Transformers 4, he was made by that private company, and then they used Megatron's brain to power him up, and now he's reborn.
Bullshit.
And Galvatron isn't the little voxel transformer anymore, is he?
I don't remember what Galvatron was to begin with.
In Transformers 4, remember Stanley Tucci had that new Transformium that was the little
wait a minute,
like,
what
pixel blocks.
He's no longer made of Transformium or something.
Yeah, there's that substance that Transformers made of. It's called Transformium.
Or if he is made of Transformium, he no longer does that shifting thing in midair.
Yeah, where he can turn into a Beats by Dre pill or something like that.
What's their home planet called?
Cybertron.
Yeah. There's a GNC on Cybertron. You go in there, you get yourself some Transformium, a little unobtainium. We just throw all the bullshit words in there.
This movie has so many. The action set pieces by themselves, if you were to just pull them out individually, make for good visual effects reels.
Except for the constant changing of the aspect ratio.
Yes, that because they did it. They were like, let's do IMAX. Let's make it bigger. And then I was like, well, how about you make the script better?
Make the script better. No, because like Bill, Elle, and Ken, you did not see The Last Night, correct?
I haven't seen really. I think I watched the original trilogy at some point, but
okay,
fuck me if I could tell you what happens.
And I've watched Age of Extinction several times.
You love Transformers 4, which I don't.
Yes, you guys have like questioned me on like why. I can't explain why. I just
that's like me with Boss Baby.
Right.
Right. Or yeah.
But they haven't seen it.
So guys, I'm going to repeat what I said like friggin' 5 minutes ago. Can we agree that this is bullshit and move on?
This is bullshit. Yes.
Are you guys at all?
Actually, I had 2 more things I wanted to mention about this. The aspect ratio, because the black bars on the top and the bottom of the screen will change size depending on what kind of format you're using, like IMAX or something like this. And you get to a new scene where it's an IMAX, and the letterboxing changes a little bit because that's the format of the screen and the camera. But this one changes between shots.
Yeah,
there's like 5 different aspect ratios in a single scene.
Yeah, we're not talking like the end of The Dark Knight Rises. At least then, in those scenes, it was like there was a longer bit of difference. You know what I mean? You got like a couple minutes of one particular bit. Then you got a couple minutes of the IMAX 70mm bit, and then you got a couple minutes of something else. It's like you just said, between shots, it just shifts like it's ADD on meth or something.
That's the name of my new progressive rock album, by the way, The Longer Bit of Difference.
Oh, okay. That sounds cool.
By the band ADD on meth.
I thought it was going to be ADD on meth.
Yeah.
The Longer Bit of Difference makes more sense as a progressive rock band. I like that.
It does. The other thing is the little girl.
Oh, yeah. She's not a very good actress, is she?
She's terrible. She's like, oh, I'm going to fight.
Is she a Nickelodeon kid or a Disney kid or something?
No, she's just some
kid they picked up.
Asshole, yeah.
They did a trailer. They did a trailer dedicated just to her character.
Where she talks to the camera.
Where she talks to the camera like I fight.
A fucking Adidas commercial? What's going on?
Like, I fight like a girl, don't you?
What?
I was like, well, no, because
what is this? The Robin Williams film Toys?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, before we get off this subject, I want to ask: are either of you looking forward to the Bumblebee solo film that is going to have John Cena in it?
And
it's directed by Travis Knight,
and that takes place in the 90s. Apparently,
the Kubo guy. Yeah, Jesus, the son of the head of Nike.
I don't think it's the same film, but they're trying to make a different Bumblebee film also that was going to be R-rated.
This one's going to take place in the past, which I'm mildly interested in.
Which also makes no sense because it's like, again, we've already established the Transformers came in the first movie.
And he's probably going to be a fucking new-ass Camaro again. He's going to be a 2020 Camaro in 1980 when the movie takes place.
Bumblebee's going to be a Volkswagen in the movie. That's confirmed.
Oh, okay.
This is more.
No matter what, I'm probably going to see it because it's going to have John Cena in it, and we're not going to get bullshit Optimus Prime is the hero kind of crap. It's a little different. It's going to be a different type thing, and
I hope
Michael Bay is not involved, or at least
exactly.
So I mean,
Yeah, I want to hear "My Time Is Now"
or any other song from his rap album.
Basic Thugonomics.
This is Basic Thugonomics. Word life.
Oh boy. Who's number 2?
Oh yes, we're on number 2, and that's me. My number 2 of 2017 worst of is Kuso.
That's That's
like
higher up.
Well, you can guess from here what my number 1 is, but we'll just go on. We'll move on to the next.
My number 2 laid a big number 2, and that is 9/11.
That's my higher up on my list.
Yeah,
okay,
it is also my number 2, so we're gonna have to wait till we get to number 1.
All right. So Bill, Leon, so your number 2? Okay,
my number 2 is 9/11.
Hawk, what's your number 2?
The Book of Henry.
All right.
Oh, cool! I get to talk about this.
Which that's one of the reviews that I'm very proud of. That I wrote User because I feel like it really just came together. That was one of the easiest reviews I've ever had to write because it is so robustly terrible, and there's so much about it that is so confusing and awful and strange and hilarious. And when Josh Trank back in the day was going to be directing a Star Wars film, and then he made Fantastic Four or Fanforstic. And
people realized what it was.
It's not that he made Fanforstic. It's that he spoke probably out of contract.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
In terms of the film. But this, he got fired from Star Wars, allegedly partly due to Fanforstic being so bad. This has now created a term called tranking yourself when you are set to make a good movie and you make a bad one and you lose the good movie.
Don't trank yourself before you wank.
Colin Trevorrow was kicked off Star Wars 9.
Episode 9 for Henry, again, allegedly, although Kathleen Kennedy came in and she was like, well, it wasn't specifically Book of Henry, even though I hated that movie too. But, she didn't actually say that, but I could picture her doing that. She basically said that Colin Trevorrow was kind of an asshole, and when he got to the Star Wars set, he was walking around like he owned the place, and you do not fuck with Kathleen Kennedy. So she fired him. But in any case, I would still believe that he was fired from Star Wars because of the Book of Henry, because it is that.
Really? The Star Wars?
What were your... What?
I said, really, the Star Wars people should have been like, we saw Jurassic World again, and we have some major problems with that.
Right.
That alone. Your feelings towards nostalgia and women.
That's
and
not
all that kind of
keeping
stuff.
Rian Johnson from being in charge of the next trilogy.
Yeah, we'll see if that actually pans out.
Yeah.
Well, that depends on what you guys felt about Last Jedi. I loved Last Jedi.
I liked it a lot too. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, right.
We're talking about
Bill, what were you just saw it a couple hours ago, so what were some of your initial thoughts on the film? I mean, we can talk about what it's about too, but go ahead.
One of my cats is fucking around. I don't know if you hear noise.
No, it's okay.
Anyway.
What did you think about it?
So I had actually watched like the first 30 or 40 minutes of this months ago and turned it off like right before the movie takes a serious plot turn. Yeah. So revisiting it today and seeing where the fuck it went, I was like, what?
Ken, did you see it?
I did not.
Okay.
I want to tell you guys what this movie's about. Henry is this hyper intelligent 11-year-old boy. Basically, like his mother she loves her kids, but she's not exactly an adult. Like her 11-year-old son does her taxes and keeps her finances and basically keeps her fucking life in line.
Well, she plays Gears of War on the couch.
She plays video games. I guess it's Gears of War. Do they ever really get into where their father is?
I don't think so. It's like, oh, ever since Dad died.
Right. Well, okay. He did. No. If they say he did die, then I miss that because
I'm saying I don't know. Like if they do mention anything,
I don't think they ever reference him dying. I don't think they ever reference him dying. There's a scene where Bobby Moynihan, who is her boss at this diner she works at, makes a comment like, "Oh, alimony payments" or something.
Yeah,
I don't think they ever specify if the dad like was a deadbeat and he left them or like what the story there is. So throughout all of this, like the first 30-40 minutes is just their lives. Henry, his little brother, and his mom, played by Naomi Watts. Henry has a crush on the girl next door who lives only with her stepfather. Her mother is dead. The movie is clear about that. And it's kind of like he starts to notice signs of her being either abused or raped. The movie doesn't have the balls to get into what exactly is going on with her.
Oh, no, they established pretty clearly that she's getting raped.
Do they? When?
Well, because the way it's shot, like he's looking, he's creeping through her window. Henry, he's looking at her window from his window next door. And she's like sitting on the floor against her wall, kind of like hugging herself. And then the door to her bedroom opens and the light casts on her and she looks up like, oh, and then
they cut immediately. That's what bothered me.
But actually saying it.
This is okay. So Henry gets a disease and dies, which isn't. We'll get into that. But at this point, the scene you're describing is when after Henry's dead, Naomi Watts is looking with the binoculars at the neighbor's house, and they cut right before they show anything.
Oh, so yeah, you're right. Because
that's why I was.
They're not going to actually show it. I mean, they're not.
I don't want them. I don't want them to show it. But like the movie again, I just feel like they never really got into what was going on there. They say abuse. They use the word abuse, but if it's sexual or not, they were never definitive on. So Henry dies of a brain tumor, is that right?
Yeah, he gets like a brain tumor because he's too smart or something, and then
he's phenomenon with John Travolta. He gets cancer just because he's too smart.
He's like that's one of the bad things. One of my biggest complaints about the movie, not that part, but like the fact that yes, Henry is insanely smart. He does the taxes, he does this and that, and the Naomi Watts' boss at a job. He's like, "Oh, you want to set up direct deposit and make it easier on you?" She's like, "Oh, I'm going to run it by Henry first," and he's like, "Your 11-year-old son, what the fuck is wrong with you?"
Yes,
but then Henry just talks to people like he's better than them. Like he finishes people's sentences. He understands his brain tumor condition better than the fucking neurosurgeon that tells him that he has it.
Yes.
He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Henry, you have..." It's like, "Oh, a quadruple bad brain tumor of a something..." Like he exactly
like that, right?
MD level medical terms for this. When he finds out that when he thinks that his neighbor is being abused, he storms into the principal's office like, "God damn it, Deborah, are you going to do something about this?"
He calls her by her first name.
Calls her by her first name like he's her police captain.
Yeah.
And he's like, Henry sucks, and it's good thing he dies halfway through the movie because
he dies halfway through the movie, and then the little brother finds the titular Book of Henry, and basically the Book of Henry lays out an assassination plan for the mother to kill the girl, their next door neighbor, the girl's stepfather. And that I laughed so fucking hard when I realized that that's where the plot was going.
Yeah,
and he made these cassette tapes for her to listen to, telling her to like go to the gun store and use this one person's name to get leverage on the gun store guy, so she could get the equipment she needs without fucking. Like I was like, what is happening? Who the fuck came up with this? And
well, this book has like diagrams and maps. And like he set aside money for her. She's like, "Oh, hello! All of a sudden, I have a checking account with $600,000 in it." And
what? Yes,
in the cassette tapes, they
set up early in the film. It's like this third or fourth scene. He's on a payphone with a stockbroker, like telling the stockbroker what stocks to invest in and shit.
Buy 5 of this stock and put it in this 401k or whatever. And it's like infuriating how technical he is.
I placed this lower on my list than you did because I might actually watch this again. This was batshit fucking crazy.
It's great.
It's established in the beginning of the film that Henry, his hobby is making like Rube Goldberg machines.
Yeah, the dumb ones though.
Right, but that's what
not like those sweet ass Pee Wee Herman breakfast machines. It like puts cream on a cookie or something like that.
That was stupid as shit. But there's a scene. It's basically the climax of the movie where she's about to snipe Dean Norris, who plays the next door neighbor. And she accidentally activates this Rube Goldberg machine, and it it drops down pictures of Henry as a little kid, and it's she. There's a line earlier. I think it's the younger son says to her, he was like, "I didn't ask what Henry would do. I asked what you would do." And she thinks in that moment, as she's about to snipe a motherfucker, she's like, "You're 11 years old. I don't know why I did this."
Yeah, it's like, wait, why is my 11-year-old teaching my dad 11-year-old teaching me to kill someone?
Yes.
But like in his cassettes that he leaves behind, Henry, this is one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way, is he leaves pauses in his monologues
no sense.
for her to talk back to him.
Yeah, that made no sense.
He's like, "Oh, you know, like we have to kill the next door neighbor," and she's like, "Why would he want to do that?" And he's like, "Because this," like he knows what she's going to say. Like,
well, no.
Head left down this street, and then she walks down. Then he's like, "Your other left," and then she turns around and walks the other direction.
And that's another great excuse for them to reuse dialogue that they already used, because there's a line in the beginning where they're like, he's like, "Why don't you get a new car? There's nothing wrong with the old car." And when he's dead and she's listening to the tape, he says, "I got you a new car." And she says, "There's nothing wrong with the old car." And he goes, "I know, but your shitty station wagon isn't a good getaway vehicle."
God damn it.
And then, of course, Henry's younger brother.
Peter? Is his name Peter?
Yeah, who cares? Obviously, between the two kids.
Well, wait. Before you go any further,
the intelligence pool of the family,
I think that little kid was trying to give some legitimate emotional performances.
Well, that was Jacob Tremblay.
Jacob Tremblay is a great performer. I'm just saying his character is a fucking dumbass.
Oh, okay.
He is.
He's afraid of sharks in the bathtub.
That kid wanted to put this movie on his resume, and he probably can't do that now.
I don't care about Jacob Tremblay, the actor. I'm talking about the character who's afraid of fucking sharks in his fucking bathtub.
Yeah, that was stupid.
I know that's an irrational fear. I understand that's an irrational fear, but as someone with OCD, I can tell you that even though pointing out that it's irrational, it makes sense, it doesn't get rid of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, the kid's not dumb. He's just a kid.
He's just Jacob Tremblay.
He's pretty dumb.
Oh, okay.
That's not the only example. There's others. I mean, no, that Jacob Tremblay's performance is really good. In fact, most of the performances in this movie are pretty good. Like that's
for what they are.
For what they are, and the movie actually has a pretty good account of how people manage grief. The mom, Naomi Watts, she tries to be happy and bake, and it's like, oh, today's a good day, and somebody's like, stop doing that. You got to let yourself grieve. And kind of seeing, because that's the way people grieve sometimes, that they try to do happy things and try to forget about what's going on. And the way the movie kind of balanced the way those emotions really tear you apart when you just lost somebody, I thought was pretty good, honestly, in regards to everything else that was going on.
I think it's just mainly the plot. Like, yeah, the performers are fine. There's some weird shit that happens with Sarah Silverman where
she kisses Henry on the lips.
Yeah, but before she kisses Henry on the lips, Henry basically says, like, "Yeah, I've been attracted to you this whole time."
Yeah. So which is weird because they're shitheads to each other. She's like, "Hey, asshole, like, how are you doing, you little butthead?"
She calls him Hank, and he doesn't like that. That's a recurring bit between the two of them, and she'll be like, "Hey, Hank." She calls him Hank instead of Henry, and he's always right. Henry. My name's Henry.
And so what it does when they do this is like, oh, so all that was sexual tension.
Oh God!
With Sarah Silverman. Sarah Silverman, and again, like they definitely had her in like a push-up bra. Like all her outfits were real. The first thing you notice when Sarah Silverman's character enters a room in this is her cleavage.
Yes, there's a lot of it,
and that's intentional. That's completely intentional. I'm not being sexist.
Yeah.
No. Her wardrobe is specifically designed to sexualize her. And man, there's just so much about this movie. Really in fact, to be believed.
You guys should watch this because this is like, it's not as insane as A Winter's Tale, but just the way the plot unfolds is like, it's similar. It's just like Winter's Tale light, maybe.
It's not unlike that kind of who was there to tell them no type of thing that Winter's Tale had.
Hey, he directed Jurassic World. It made so much money. We can't tell him how bad this is.
What's funny is that the YouTube reviewer Chris Stuckman loved Book of Henry. He said it was Colin Trevorrow's best movie.
Maybe it is in some weird way.
In some weird way, it might be.
I was underwhelmed personally by Safety Not Guaranteed.
It's not as cool as it sounds. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I was a big fan of the meme that it's based on, so I was honestly hoping for more. Yeah, like over the top, goofy shit.
Right.
Yeah, you're never going to be any more awesome than the video the guy made that was narrated by Don LaFontaine.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next
number one.
Number one.
Yes.
So Bill A, you're number one.
My number one is, of course, 9/11.
Can I just say I felt like Muhammad Hassan all day today because I kept saying 9/11.
Okay, just to clarify for you guys who aren't wrestling fans, Muhammad Hassan was a character played by an Italian American, who the character was supposed to be this post 9/11 representation of Middle East American aggression.
Yeah, he was. They were very clear that the character was born in America.
Yeah, and they wanted the character. In his promos, the character's like, "America should be accepting me. I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a bad guy." But even though he was doing bad guy things in the ring, and the fans were supposed to dislike him, he was supposed to be like, "No, you guys dislike me because of my race." And then what ends up happening with the character is the most ridiculous, stereotypical shit. They literally have at one point terrorists or cult members with ski masks come out and basically carry, I think it was The Undertaker, from the ring to the backstage area as if they're going to like kidnap him or something.
They did this. They did this the same day of the London bombing of 2005.
Yes. So in response to that, WWE was like, "Okay, we're just going to have to kill off the Muhammad Hassan character." So they had the Undertaker choke slam him, or maybe it was he gave him a power bomb off of the ramp and into some tables, and that killed off his character for the rest of his career.
So this guy, this actor, or essentially, his performer, his entire career is destroyed
because of their decision to do a terrorist angle.
Yeah,
oh, isn't that wonderful?
But he would bring up 9/11 all the time. You'd be like, "The reason you don't people like me is because 9/11." Somebody made like a supercut of him saying 9/11 that I saw. Like,
but of course he would. It was topical at the time. It still is topical, but I mean,
speaking of 9/11, there was
9/11.
There was a movie starring Charlie Sheen called 9/11.
I wish this movie had.
And it has no relation to Alex Jones or conspiracies.
I didn't get a chance to see this movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater, and Bill Leon just saw it today.
I almost saw it in the theater, and then something came up that day.
This movie's based on a play. I can only assume is off Broadway.
Yeah,
I don't think it was ever on Broadway.
It debuted in Arizona.
Okay, so it debuted in some rinky-dink community theater, probably, and it was bought, I guess, by some production company or whatever, and Charlie Sheen was like, "Yes, I want to be on board with this project."
Weren't there like a bunch of like South Korean companies that got in on this?
Well, I will say when this movie started, there were like 4 or 5 different production company logos that played.
So a lot of people had hands in this.
Everybody throws in $5 and they get it made.
Yes, I think that's kind of, and they might as well have thrown.
It was. I actually. I recently just rewatched Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, and that starts with like Schlang Incorporated, Schlang 123 Productions, Schlang this, and there's like 4 or 5 different fake production company logos.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different production companies: Sprockefeller Pictures, Sunset Pictures, Black Bear Pictures, Thunder Studios, The Film House, and Vitamin A.
He's not kidding.
Thunder
And I remember that very specifically when I started the film. I was like, how many fucking studios worked on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a little while to get going because of that. And so the plot of the movie is essentially a couple people are trapped in an elevator that gets stuck when the first plane hits the first tower on the day of 9/11. And the only communication they end up having is with the lady who runs the elevators or is over in charge of the elevator services for the World Trade Center, played by Whoopi Goldberg. And in the elevator, you have Charlie Sheen and his soon-to-be ex-wife, played by Gina Gershon. They're a wealthy couple. You have a delivery guy, like a guy who gives like a courier. You have Luis Guzman, a bike messenger, basically. You have Luis Guzman,
played by Wood Harris, by the way.
Played by Wood Harris, yes. You have Luis Guzman, who's a maintenance guy for the World Trade Center, and you have some actress who's anxiety ridden for being inside of a close proximity of claustrophobic. Yeah,
They also imply that there might have been like a physical dispute with her and her old man boyfriend that works in the World Trade Center.
The movie, it should be noted, this is basically a one-setting film, aside from stock footage of 9/11 from the news of the day.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that, yes. But for the most part, the movie takes place in this one elevator and sometimes in the security room that Whoopi Goldberg works in. And in the beginning, there was an office and there was a house. But other than that, it's all in this elevator. And slowly, smoke is filling the air because of the fire and everything. And
that doesn't happen until the third act, really.
That doesn't happen for a while, but that does happen. And tensions rise, of course, because they don't know if they're going to live or die. But on top of that, they're bringing up their personal demons. And
that's the stuff. Yeah,
that's the heavy stuff, right?
Yeah. That's when it really gets into like, I can't believe what I'm watching territory. Coupled with the fact that this is just such a cynical, like we're gonna cash in on the emotional trauma of 9/11, and I kept thinking to myself several times while watching this, I was like, I am thankful that I didn't know anybody in the towers on 9/11. I didn't lose anyone close to me. I can't imagine watching this if you did. Like I would probably be fucking furious.
It should probably be noted that there have been a couple other movies that are based around 9/11, either on that day or post 9/11 kind of stuff.
There's one with Nick Cage, right? Is that Flight?
No, that's World Trade Center. That's the Oliver Stone movie.
World Trade Center. Yeah. And then there's Ladder 49 with John Travolta. That's a 9/11 movie?
Yep. No, that's just a firefighter movie, I think.
But there is a scene where 9/11 happens. He comes home and it's on the TV.
Oh, okay. But still, it's not technically.
No.
There's Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. But that's more like post 9/11. That's not really.
There was Remember Me.
Reign Over Me?
Reign Over Me?
No. Remember Me, the Robert Pattinson movie, where 9/11 was a plot twist.
Shit!
In the bill, yeah, in the movie, it's like, surprise! The building you're in is the World Trade Center. You're dead.
Oh fuck! That is horrible.
Yeah, it was actually really, really bad.
That reminds me of an independent film that a friend of mine made, where it ends up being inside the Virginia Tech massacre.
Yeah,
that's the twist at the end. Is
right,
and the movie's about this.
Same concept, yeah,
same kind of thing, but. In that movie, it tied into the themes of what she was getting at about mental illness and stuff. But anyways, in this movie, however, compared to the other movies, is completely despicable in terms of its exploitation of the event, in terms of its exploitation of the emotions we felt during the event, in terms of really everything you could conjure up regarding 9/11. It's really writing that hard. You know, the other movies I would say were at least tributes to the victims and the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some degree, in some way, shape, or form, that's what they were trying to go for. This movie, it's literally like Bill Leon just said, cashing in on that sweet 9/11 money, which I can't imagine there is much to cash in on at this point. But
no, in fact, no film like where 9/11 is the focus
has made that much money, really.
Yeah, right.
So there is no money to cash in on.
Tragedy, and people still feel
it's a tragedy that people still feel strongly about, but they're not wanting to revisit it in a film directly.
It's movies about horrible, like unredeemable tragedies like that don't I mean, you didn't, when the movie Elephant came out, that wasn't like a huge box office smash.
It was a critical smash, but it wasn't.
Sure, but yeah, movies like that do not make money, really,
because that's a real thing that we still deal with to this day. School shootings, you know.
Oh, totally.
Which is completely horrific, and we're not even touching that topic, you know. But 9/11, you know, is just an example of someone going, "What property do we have? Oh, we have this play that someone wrote. Okay." We can make it easily and cheaply because it's one setting for the most part, and it's about
Whoopi Goldberg owes us a big favor.
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg owes us a big favor, and it's a topic that everyone's familiar with. So let's make a movie about that. And like Bill Leon also said, it's so fucking cynical.
Isn't the weirder thing that Charlie Sheen's in this because he's a 9/11 truther?
Yes, yeah. That's why I mentioned conspiracies earlier. Like, this movie has nothing to do with any conspiracy whatsoever. That would have made it mildly interesting, maybe.
But I don't.
Mildly, I say. Mildly. Like,
maybe.
Like, just because of that sheer fact that he once wrote a letter to President Obama about wanting to investigate 9/11 again. Yeah. I remember that. He wrote an open letter to President Obama where he imagined him meeting him in the Oval Office and is like, okay, but Mr. President, do you know that steel beams can't melt under these degrees or whatever, or that gas can't melt steel beams? It was like the stupidest
steel beams.
Yeah, the stupidest meme shit that we all have to deal with all the time from our dumb friends from high school who post this shit all the time. It's like that, but taking in the form of a public letter to the president. And Charlie Sheen wrote that. He thought that was a good idea. And he's in the movie 9/11. And really, this movie, while it's all about 9/11, probably should have been called The Elevator or something. It shouldn't have been called 9/11. If you're going to make your movie called 9/11, the movie should be like different aspects of that day. It should be like all over the place. You know what I mean? Like a multi-layered.
You would need like
elevator
to make a movie and title it 9/11. You would need James Cameron and like the production team behind Titanic.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, in a way. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like, because, well, again, that movie was made like 100 fucking years after the fact, so it's not like anybody does. You know, it didn't affect people personally the same way. This movie.
But the point is, if you're going to title your movie directly after the event, you got to cover your bases, you know? And this movie is so short-sighted, so poorly done, and so despicable in terms of what it is that it's just, you want to shower afterwards. And I don't even want to talk about the ending.
So speaking of wanting to shower afterwards, we're going to go ahead and...
Wait.
I think Bill Leon's got something else he wants to say.
Hold up here. So the attempts at making these characters human in this were just...
They are human, but they're really pushing the buttons hard.
They constantly fell on their face. Like, there's... the black guy is like, oh, this Pakistani motherfucker driving a cab hit me. And they're like, how do you know he was Pakistani? Did you see his face? And he's like, no, but I know because Pakistani motherfuckers drive cabs. And then Luis Guzman, like, he says something to Luis Guzman, and he's like, you really want to get into this black Latino shit right now, essay?
Or what about when Charlie Sheen's talking to his ex?
Charlie Sheen,
Gina Gershon. He's like, they're making like some dialogue, and then he says, "No, it's 9/11, not 7/11 or whatever the fuck the line dialogue
no. You're wrong.
I'm totally wrong on it. I know. I don't remember really. But.
It's earlier. It's in the before they get on the elevator. They're in the divorce hearing with their lawyers. And she says the 9th hour, and he's like, "It's the 11th hour."
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what it was. 9/11. Get it?
I didn't even put that together till you just pointed it out. But Charlie Sheen offers jobs to the poor people.
Yeah, right. He's like fucking Tommy Wiseau in The Room. He's like, everybody likes him. Johnny's such a good guy.
Gina Gershon has a whole scene where she's like, he came from nothing. He made his fortune. He gives a charity and helps kids go to college. And Luis Guzman and the black bike messenger are just like, oh, we misjudged him.
Right, and then they're like, he's like, I'm gonna give you guys jobs if we make it out of this.
Yeah, but he does it. He does it to motivate them to exhaust their bodies trying to break through drywall.
Right, he probably has no intention, but
well, that's another thing.
Well, maybe he does. He's a good guy after all.
He's a wonderful guy. Johnny works for the bank. He's gonna get a promotion soon.
And how the movie ends. I guess we should get into spoilers at this point because
we gotta talk about this ending because
the elevator plummets almost completely to the ground.
Everybody's out but Charlie Sheen
until the last moment when it finally stops. And this is the scene in the trailer where they're like, it's not the fall that kills you, and they're like, what? And then
you're talking about that aspect of the ending, okay?
Yeah. Well, anyways, it plummets down to the last floor, the first floor. And they're able to open the doors, and the firemen are able to get everyone out except for Charlie Sheen. He's the last one stuck as the elevator drops a little bit more. And the firefighter's like, "Okay, everyone out. I'm not going to leave this guy. I'm going to stay behind, and I'm going to save him." And I was like, "Okay, that's the right thing to do." So go ahead.
The reason Charlie Sheen's the last one left in the elevator is because he's such a great guy that.
He made sure the other people got out.
I'm fucking last one out. Yeah.
So the firefighter, the last scene of this movie is the firefighter on top of the elevator, breaking through the top of the roof, trying to grab Charlie Sheen's hand, and slowly above the firemen, you see the building collapsing in on itself. And Charlie Sheen looks up at the camera and closes his eyes.
And that's it?
That's how the movie ends.
Oh, fuck.
That's some shit.
It cuts to black so abruptly that I thought,
and then sad music.
I thought the video player I was watching it on malfunctioned. That's how abruptly it cuts to black.
It was a bad abrupt cut. Yes, it was. Yeah. It was bad. So speaking of taking showers after something bad.
First of all, I just have to ask: did anyone? Kuso is number one for the rest of us, isn't it?
Not for me.
Oh, okay. So,
okay.
All right, Bill Leon, you say yours next, and because Kuso, there's just too much to talk about. We need to save that for last.
Okay. So, Bill Leon, what was your number one?
I did not see Kuso. I don't know if I should see Kuso.
I think you should, just to join the rest of us.
We'll see. My number one was The Mummy, because let's do what Marvel did, and Jack, fuck if I know, Russell Crowe, Johnny Depp's going to play Jekyll and Hyde. No, Russell Crowe is Jekyll and Hyde. Johnny Depp's going to play the Invisible Man. Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares about any of this? Y'all wasted.
Did, that's why it's not happening anymore.
Y'all wasted so much money on this.
The Invisible Man just lost its writer, actually.
So. Yeah, I read that a couple hours ago.
I did not know that, but
but they wasted so much money, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I even wish that I could dredge up more to say about this. It was just,
you can't do an action movie version of something that had no.
It wasn't about thrilling stunts. The Mummy was. It wasn't.
None of the Mummy movies are action movies, except for the ones with Brendan Fraser, and those have almost no resemblance to the actual Mummy movies.
Right. That's kind of the point of those movies, is to be different. Yeah.
I think the Mummy was the Tom Cruise Mummy that came out last year was trying to ape off of that Indiana Jones type of feel that the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies had. But at the same time, you're trying to launch a cinematic universe where you can throw Dracula and Frankenstein in there, or the Wolfman, or the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and it's like, you talk about getting off on the wrong fucking foot.
Yeah, they're gonna have some kind of team up movie later on, like the Avengers. I mean, they literally call their thing the Dark Universe.
To fight who? Cthulhu? Like,
exactly. That's, I didn't know either. Like, what is this leading up to?
You can't create a cinematic universe like that. You have to make a good film with maybe an idea that, okay, if this works, if this takes off, then we can spend some time and effort tying together a cinematic universe.
When you look back on those old Universal monster movies, they barely have any continuity between them. Sometimes they'll get the same actor back, sometimes they won't. Sometimes, like especially the Frankenstein movies, which might have the most entries in a single series, but those movies change continuity from film to film all the time.
Right.
Oh yeah.
What I do want to say this, I'm not saying that this can't work, because I would love to see them make this work. I had made the suggestion last year, like let's find a funny comedic duo to basically replace Abbott and Costello and throw them in these movies. Like, you could have Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. 21 Jump Street meets Frankenstein. Key and Peele meets Frankenstein. Yeah, like there's so many. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say it. There was a great Creature of the Black Lagoon remake that came out.
It's called The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
I got a huge kick out of The Mummy because it was so dumb.
I'll never forget the IMAX trailer that they released on YouTube, where they cut out the audio or
sound
the audio.
Up, yeah.
And it's just you hearing the bad yell and scream.
I mean, it's just the noises of throughout that scene, like ooh, oh.
I really don't have that much to say about this movie, but I will say I put The Mummy at number 1 just because no movie that I saw in 2017 had more money thrown at it that just felt like nobody making it wanted to be there. Nobody fucking cares. This is... And that's the thing. If you're going to reboot the Universal monster movie franchise from the fucking 40s and 50s, get people that want to make them. Get people that care. Get people that are passionate about it. It just blows my fucking mind. Yeah, and it just is unnecessary.
Because it's just tons of action and stunts, and like at the end, Tom Cruise turns into the God of Death, which was kind of awesome, but they didn't do enough of that. And he releases the Mummy because like, oh, this is a pulley system that keeps her entombed. He pulls out his gun and shoots it and releases.
I'm pretty sure he does it just to impress the girl, and it's like the girl didn't want you to do that.
Yeah, it's a very strange and really bad movie, but in terms of, I think it's a really enjoyably terrible movie because every second is like they should have done something different, and then like the whole Jekyll and Hyde is basically Nick Fury. And there's a fight where he turns into Hyde, and that was hilarious because then all of a sudden Russell Crowe has this awful Cockney accent as Hyde. It's like, join me, we'd be a great hit with the ladies.
Yeah, and I had a lot of problems with this. I maybe I just had a more cynical look on it than you did, because like almost every single thing that happens, I just kept thinking like, what Hollywood suit was like, this is a good idea because this is like what Marvel would do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They tried to do what Marvel did. They did the DC thing where they try to do everything that Marvel did with an extended universe without putting the time and the effort into doing it. They wanted to make an Avengers right away without making Iron Man first.
And this movie makes the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen look fantastic by comparison.
That says a lot because that movie is a fucking disaster.
It looks like it looks like Joss Whedon's The First Avengers compared to The Mummy.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just like these harebrained ideas that whoever the fuck owns the rights to these things get, and it's like we're gonna make a cinematic universe. You know who's pulled it off? Just Marvel, really. Like, I guess Harry Potter, but that's not like Fantastic Beasts was a fucking.
It's not a cinematic universe. It's a linear series.
Yes, Marvel's the only one that has made this shit really work so far. Lego's on their way to making it work. Hopefully, they stay on a good track.
Yeah.
Except the Lego Ninjago movie was garbage.
I didn't see it.
I didn't hate it.
It was garbage. Unfunny, dull, stupid.
I thought it was funny. Not nearly as good as Batman, but
the Batman. If you don't give a shit about Batman, I could assume that the Lego Batman movie might be like, it's just an average kids movie. But if you get the specific deep cut Batman references they're making, it's a lot of fun.
It's ingenious.
So we need to move on to the final bad movie,
Kuso and the Two Strings.
So Kuso, the word Kuso is Japanese for bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
And that describes this movie. So Flying Lotus, under the name Stephen Ellison, directed this movie. Flying Lotus is a music producer, and he doesn't know how to direct movies. So
yes, the funny thing is he does a lot of the cards between Adult Swim segments.
Oh, the bumpers.
You can tell by watching that's like what he does. This is like what would happen if Tim and Eric suffered a stroke mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And turned that into a movie.
It's kind of... We talked about this. I actually revisited the episode where we talked about Kuso last night. And I stand by what I said before, is that it's not dissimilar to the Greasy Strangler, which we all loved last year, except for Zach. And it's because the Greasy Strangler just does what it does. It's weird and gross and nasty and dumb, and it just does it. Whereas Kuso consistently tries to do those things.
Yes.
It's like, look at this. Look at what I'm doing. Look at how gross I am. Whereas Greasy Strangler didn't have to say that because it was so confident in that.
Greasy Strangler was creatively written and conceived. And it's sort of a miracle that it is as good as it is, because what it's doing is just being gross for the sake of grotesque.
Exactly.
But it does that in kind of a witty, creative way. Whereas Kuso does gross for the sake of grossness, but it doesn't attempt. It just basically throws gross things at you without context or purpose.
Yeah. I'd like to note real quickly though. I introduced this movie to Ken.
Yeah.
Over Rabbit, and this was our first viewing of it too. I was given a screener for it, and I was like, "What do you think? Let's watch this movie." And then we were like just baffled by it and grossed out, and we were just holding our heads like, "What?"
Yeah.
And a second side note, Flying Lotus did an interview on the Talk House podcast with filmmaker Terrence Nance, and Terrence interviewed him about his thoughts and feelings in the movie, and he basically talked about his anxiety over STDs and the fact that he's never made a movie before and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He actually said that. He's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah, that's obvious.
It's completely obvious. This movie it should be noted too that this is like kind of a vignette movie. There is sort of a story being told here and there.
Ostensibly, it's about mutated survivors of an earthquake that destroys Los Angeles.
Supposedly that's what it's about, but there's really not much to hook you into that except for a news report that you kind of hear in the background.
And that news report at the very beginning, I thought was going to be the beginning of the start of a very fun movie, because it's like it's a song. It's like, oh, this is going to be some grotesque rock opera. And then they completely abandon that idea after that one scene.
Yeah, that sequence was initially kind of promising because I was like, oh, so this is going to be like some sort of Rocky horror kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It almost had a beat feeling to it, like beat cinema, like something from the late '60s in a way. Like it had that feeling of something that was going to be, high-minded but weird, and odd, And then it moved into a kid who puts pieces of shit inside of a hole in the ground or something.
A monster thing that eats shit.
Hairy hole, yes, that turns into a monster that eventually kills him. It's also about an Asian woman who screams a lot. It's about a guy who has sex with a neck pustule that talks.
It's about family.
It's about family, yes.
It's about George Clinton who has an abortion clinic.
And he shits out a slug.
Is that really him?
Yes, that's him. That's him, yes. He shits out a slug on a guy's chest or something.
Yeah.
Or there's like a giant
something that gets
out of a dude's ass. Like,
no, we're not messing with you. These things happen, Bill.
The real George Clinton.
The real George Clinton shits out a slug in this movie, yes.
Parliament Funkadelic George Clinton.
George Clinton makes a cameo appearance in this film, yes.
And that's not the only cameo. This movie, amongst the names in this movie, you have Tim Heidecker.
Who is the highlight of the film, actually.
Hannibal Buress.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have George Clinton, of course. David Firth is an interesting cameo. David Firth, if you don't know, is the creator of Salad Fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's got some interesting, guest bits. But probably if I have to call any bit my favorite bit, it would be the one where the girl who has two interdimensional beings as her roommates goes into her bathroom in her apartment to take a pregnancy test, and Tim Heidecker, who plays the guy who's like stalking her, he literally pops out of the toilet. His head pops out of the toilet, anyways, and he's like, "Oh, hi! I was just in the neighborhood, and I thought I'd pop in with it." That was mildly funny because it was like a weird little thing about stalking and stuff. But what made it funny to me even more was he had a turd on his head because he was coming out of a toilet, and he says he starts sniffing the air and he goes, "Hey, what did you have? Soup today?" I thought, like, all right, that's kind of humorous, but then it gets into really gross territory where he starts talking about how he raped her.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh. You know what I mean? And then the scene is basically about her getting a pregnancy test to go eventually get an abortion for her rape child.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Is this like Harmony Korine made movie 43?
No.
Harmony Korine makes movie.
Nowhere near that level of calculation.
No.
No, this is
by way of Trash Humpers?
Maybe? No, not even by way of Trash Humpers. Movie 43 Movie 43 is kind of a good comparison in a way because this movie does have segments to it,
Mm-hmm.
But
imagine if movie 43 was 4 rooms.
Oh, the 4 rooms. You remember that where each movie was each.
I know what it is. I just don't. 4 rooms didn't have like people as much poop as you guys are describing.
Yeah, but movie 43 did. So
except movie 43, I chuckled a couple times.
You did?
Did you? Because
this movie, I chuckled that one time that I described. The rest of it, I was holding my head in disbelief and confusion.
I laughed at movie 43 and Hugh Jackman's balls on his chin.
Yeah.
And then at one point he scratches them and sniffs his finger. I was like, that's kind of funny.
That is funny. That's I bet you anything that was something Hugh Jackman came up with.
Oh, that was totally a nonverbal improv, yes, because...
Don't the balls, like, touch food or something? Or they, like, go into a glass of water?
A lot of that happens, yeah. Like,
it's kind of funny. I mean,
it's
stupid, but it's kind of...
Very stupid. It didn't need to be an entire sketch, but I think movie 43 is a horrible film, but I think part of what makes it just a tiny bit forgivable is that every single actor is 100% into it. They all they might as well be looking at the camera and saying, "Look at this giant piece of shit we made together."
But Kuso, I would say it's a different kind of commitment. I think the actors in Kuso are wanting to make something. I just don't think they knew what exactly it was, maybe,
right,
or how it was going to be compiled together. You know what I mean? I think Tim Heidecker was he'll do a lot of weird stuff. I mean, just look at $1 Billion Movie. He had a sex scene that was one of the grossest things I've ever seen in cinema.
right,
and where he's all greased up and oiled up, and they're licking each other, and oh god,
he's in a bathtub that everybody's shitting into.
Well, that was Eric Wareheim, but
okay,
shrimp.
But no, this movie it's like Flying Lotus, I guess, got these actors based off of his name recognition and the fact that the idea for the movie sounded like an Adult Swim kind of thing. But Flying Lotus has never made a movie before, so he didn't really know what he was getting himself into, maybe.
And let us pray that he never makes another movie again.
Well, unless he learns from his mistakes. I mean, that would be fine, but
does this movie seem like something?
But I kind of agree. Yes, I kind of agree with you, Ken. This might be like a movie where it's a mistake that you don't learn to better yourself from. It's like something that will only be repeated because you don't know it's a mistake.
Fortunately, I don't think
because you're proud of it.
Maybe if he had somebody to tell him, like, for example, George Lucas, part of the reason that the original trilogy was so good for Star Wars is that his wife would pop up and say, no, that idea is stupid, don't do it. And then they divorced, and then he made the prequel trilogy and had nobody to help kind of funnel his creative vision. So I think it's somebody
ideas that I wasn't allowed to use in these other movies.
I thought he was wasn't he getting a divorce during Return of the Jedi?
I don't think so.
I think during Empire, right?
It was during one of those movies, and he said that's why this movie's so dark, is because
that was Temple of Doom.
Oh, that was Temple of Oh,
you're
that's
right. You're right.
You're right. You are right. Yeah. That's right. That's why.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, I was really mad and angry when I was making Temple of Doom, so that's why it's so dark and violent." And you're welcome for the PG-13 rating.
And hateful.
Borderline racist.
But he needs somebody to.
Not borderline.
That's an understatement.
If Flying Lotus had someone to funnel that creative vision, I think he might make a good film, because I think Kuso did have some creative set design and creature design. It was nasty, but I think
there was a creative energy
used correctly. It could be really interesting.
And I also think it can't be, understated that this movie was a vision of some sort. I can't say that it's something I would want to have as a vision, or that I think ought to have been executed at all, but executed maybe in a different way. Like the movie should have been, I don't know, shot out of a cannon or something. But
yeah, how about you just execute those involved in making this film?
No, I wouldn't do that. I would just execute the movie. Like just scrap it. It's like in The Bad and the Beautiful, that movie with Kirk Douglas where he plays an unscrupulous movie producer. Uh-huh. At the end of the movie, he actually ends up directing the movie that he was originally producing, and then he's like, "Fire the director, scrap the movie, shelve it. It's shit." Just shelve the movie. Just put it, like Red Letter Media said it best. Put it in a time capsule. Set it for, don't open it until the year 500 billion. When the sun has engulfed the Earth.
I don't think that's what people in the post-apocalypse want to watch, but
exactly,
that's the idea.
That's the idea. Is that we're not going to see it.
Multi-generational fuck you to the future.
Yes. It'll be like the Ralph Bakshi film Wizards, where they find the Nazi propaganda footage.
Yeah.
So that was Kuso, and that was 2017, folks.
2017.
Yeah. Well, the bad of it. Anyway.
The bad of it, most of it I didn't get that angry about, but really my top four were like, these are trash. 2018, I don't know next week if we're doing the best of right off the bat, are we?
Doing the 10 to 6 of the best of, right?
No, like we did this week, we're only going to be doing the top 5 in any length. But we're doing our best of next Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So be ready for that.
while this is still relevant, I watched The King of Polka on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Has anyone else watched this?
No.
Polka King of the Midwest.
What's that? What'd you say, Ken?
Polka King of the Midwest.
I kept making that joke when I was watching it. Yeah, none of my friends got it, and I was like, "Fuck you guys." But this film, The King of Polka, starring Jack Black, it's a little. I just recently revisited the film Bernie for Ken and I's New Year's marathon. So, this is kind of a similar thing where Jack Black plays this guy that gets way in over his head with this illegal shit that he's doing. In this case, I think he's from Poland, and he moves to Pennsylvania, and he becomes like this hot polka guy. And he starts taking investments from people in this small Pennsylvania town without having a business or like the proper papers to be taking investment from these people. So he gets wrapped up in this huge Ponzi scheme, ends up getting caught up, goes to jail in Delaware, by the way. He was jailed in Delaware, the guy that Jack Black plays in this.
Oh, so this is based on a true story. Based
on a true story, which Netflix also put out a documentary on the guy that Jack Black plays in this. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. It's like a little bit of Bernie, a little bit of I, Tonya. Sally Struthers plays his mother-in-law in it, and I haven't seen Sally Struthers in God knows how long. And she was, watch it. It was good.
So we're getting off to a good start this year, basically.
Hopefully, yeah. We'll see.
All right. Well, we will reconvene next week with the positive side of 2017.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.